for tuning in to P2P Relates, where we talk about all things relationships. I'm Pat Renfro. For the month of January, I've been encouraging you to be focused and to accomplish some things. And so today we're going to culminate this month by looking at the Great Resignation. So I'm going to talk about 3 reasons why people quit, 2 things that companies can do to stop the bleeding and encourage their employees to stay. And then finally, the third thing is, now what? So my 3 reasons that I believe caused this to happen is that, first of all, in many cases, people were already unhappy with their jobs and not truly identifying what their work was. If you know who you are and what your life work is, what your gifts are, and you have a conviction to really pursue that and that alone without apology because you're clear that that's what you were called to do, you're going to end up most likely with a different job than the average Joe that says, hey, I got babies to take care of, I got rent to pay, I got a car note to satisfy, and I need a job. So I'd like to be over here doing such and such. I went to school for that, but that's not opening up, so I'm just going to take this. Now, don't get me wrong. That's honorable when people say, I got to get money and I've got to work. Many times we have to do things we may not choose to do, and yet we have to, because we have to be responsible to take care of our families. But at the same time, what's easy to happen is you get into a job and you get that paycheck every 2 weeks or whatever, and you just get complacent. Hey, it's paying the bills. But the longer you stay there, the more and more you will not really be satisfied or happy. So when the pandemic hit and people were sent home in many cases, and then the other people didn't get a chance to get home, they had to work like slaves, that was an awakening. And so for those who hated their jobs anyway, they got laid off or they had to go home because they were sick, and they ended up with unemployment in America and probably all over the world in different ways where they could. And that money gave you some time to breathe, and it also gave you some incidental time to think. So, first reason, people are unhappy with their jobs. The second reason, burnout. So think about all the frontline workers, whether it was medical, public health, police, and many retail workers and just employees who had to work. They had to keep their businesses open. They could not just shut down. They had to just take precautions. Those people, in many cases, again, if you're not in the right job or you don't stand up for yourself, you just get caught up in what the rat race that you were assigned to. They got burned out. They couldn't take it anymore. Moss, Leader, Whiteside, and Maslow were 4 researchers that came together to look at just what was causing burnout. And they said 85% of the people that they surveyed said that they were burned out from workload. And part of that burnout came from their inability to be acknowledged, their inability to have conversation about their mental health and all the stress they were going through, the increase of workload with the expectation to just keep going, even though we know you're tired. Hey, we got to do what we got to do. And then the inability to really have conversations about it with management as well as coworkers in a way that was healthy and productive. You know, when we're traumatized, it's critical that you have somebody you can talk to about it and not just complain and moan, but more so to constructively get it out of you. Because anytime you're holding on, it is damaging. And then finally, number 3, I say the third reason that this resignation happened was because people got clear. And they came from two sides. Either they got burned out and what I call mashed like a burger. They couldn't do it anymore. They were like, "Oh my God, are you kidding me? I'm out. What else can I do? Because this is not it." And the other contingency was they got laid off because their companies weren't getting the business they needed. They went home and they got unemployment. And that money enabled them to breathe so they could think it through and figure it out. And in many cases, they figured out that what they had been doing just to get by, just to pay the bills, just to take care of the kiddies, wasn't enough for their lives. And they had other choices. And in some cases, they took those choices and they pursued other avenues. And they're happy. Now, let's shift over to what companies can do differently. Companies can have better leadership. Call it human-centered leadership. When you have human-centered leadership, you care about your people. You understand that if your people are happy, then your customers are happy. I've seen it time and time again. Now, if you just want your customers happy and you don't really care about what it does to your people, you're going to have turnover, you're going to have discontentment, you're going to have frustration, and then you're going to have people that leave. But if you figure out how to care for your people while they're here and you consider their needs, and not at the expense of your needs, but you recognize you have a business to run, not every implying that, but you need to make sure that you have healthy people working with you, mentally healthy, physically healthy. There are some cases where companies gave their employees a week off because they knew they were getting burned out. And while that's a quick little fix, it's really a Band-Aid, because the reality is what they needed to do is stop and say, how can we run this business differently? Because if you think about it, the companies that truly excelled during the pandemic, they weren't lucky. They repositioned themselves. They looked at their strategies differently and they said, we can't do it the way it's always been done. We got to do it differently. Those companies that continue to do it the way they've always done it are the ones that are still trying to bring employees back when the rates for infections are high. They're the companies that had a bunch of their employees participate in the Great Resignation. And they're the companies that have mashed their employees to the point where their employees are so burned out, they're either bitter or gone. So that's what you can do, companies, better. You can look at adopting a human-centered leadership style where you actually don't treat your employees like they're computers, drones, robots, but you treat them like the human beings that they are, like you are. They have families like you have families. They have concerns, hurts, fears, frustrations from workload, just like you could and did at one point. And as you acknowledge that and then empower them to brainstorm, be self-directed maybe, to figure out how can we do this differently so that it doesn't get burned out, and then support that, you can change things. You can turn this around. Last week, I talked about cover is a model that I developed. And real quickly, communicate, observe, value, elevate, and finally, respond. So I'll put that at the end of the video so you can check it out and just think about it. Because we, as a world, cannot continue business like we always did. No, they say if you have an employee that's making $45,000 a year and they resign, or you lose them, or you fire them, it's going to take you about $15,000 to get somebody else. And it might be even more because of the shortage of workers at this point. Now, you have a lot of shortage because your employees left because they were infected and sick. You got employees that you let go of because they didn't get vaccinated. You have employees who got so burned out they couldn't do it anymore. And you've got other situations. But if you do your part, companies, if you respond in a different way, because the world is not the way it was just 2.5 years ago. It's different, and it will never return to what it was before. So like I said, the companies who made this transition, who made the adjustments, those are the companies that will excel and rise above all that we're going through at this point. To all of those listening, I want to close off by saying this. Now what? We can gripe and complain all day long about how things should be, how things shouldn't have gone, how long COVID is lasting, and I'll be glad when this is over, and man, blah, blah, blah. But the truth is, to all of us listening, things simply are never going to be the way they used to be. So you got to get on the bandwagon and figure out what's best going forward, because that's what we got to do. So I'll leave you with 3 things. 1, take advantage of the opportunity to be you. And what I mean by that is, as you figure out what your gifts are, what your talents are, what your passion is, what jazzes you, what you find yourself doing when you're not even thinking about it because it's just naturally what you love to do, that's being you. And the more you align yourself with the true you, the more probability that you're going to be working in an area that suits you perfectly. So pursue that. Instead of getting caught up in what should have been, what shouldn't have happened, how burned out you are, work on getting restored and valuing who you are and pursuing you. Number 2, the clearer you become, the better you'll be at asking for what you want. And most likely getting it, because the energy that you will put forth as you walk in confidence will enable things to open up for you. So clarity. Been talking about clarity all month. Get clear, because the clearer you get, the more direct into the path you want is going to manifest. Said that kind of weird, but hey, you get my point, hopefully. And number 3, surround yourselves with people who are like-minded in the direction you want to end up. Not like-minded in who you may be today. Because you might need to change dance partners. You might need to change neighborhoods. We are most like the 5 people we are closest to. So check out, who are your 5 closest people? And I don't mean right now, because the pandemic may force you to be around people because you need to be sheltered. But what I am saying is, relationally, who are your 5 closest people in your life? Are they in the direction you want to go? Are they the kind of people that you look forward to becoming like, or that you're proud of to be with? Because that's where you're headed, those 5 people. So surround yourself with like-minded people, people that are about it, people that are going where you're trying to go, people that are excelling, people that will support you in your efforts, not tear you down, not criticize you to the point of despair, but people who will believe in your dream and gladly encourage you along the way. All right, that's all I had today. Hit that subscribe button. Tap the bell so that when I upload every week, you will get notifications, as I always do. And give me a like, and I really would love to hear what you think about the Great Resignation and my comments. All right, you have a great week, and I will see you this time next week. Bye.